Well, I mean, you've been one of the Faces of CFS in the traveling photo exhibit that has been circling around the country since 2006. What's it been like for you to be a participant in that, be interviewed by so many different media outlets over the years?
Well, I can't travel with this illness, so it's odd for me to think of my giant head traveling around the country without me and being in many different places. I'm basically shy, and it's strange to think of my face being out there before people, but I think it's very, very important that people understand that many different kinds of people, any kind of person you can think of might have CFS. Old, young, all ethnic groups, all male, female, it doesn't matter. Anyone could have chronic fatigue syndrome, and I want to make sure that that image is always in front of people's minds, because so many people have wrong ideas about who comes down with this illness and why. And it's important that they understand that anybody can come down with this illness. It's not something for a particular group. It's not something anyone does to themselves. It's a terrible, terrible illness and needs to be treated very seriously, and it can affect anyone.
When you have the chance to talk to someone who really does want to try to understand what it is you go through, how do you describe the experience of having CFS and its most disabling aspects?
Well, it has so many symptoms that you really can't describe all of them. Pain, almost everybody has, and people can, at least to some extent, understand pain. Everyone has had pain, although it's not pain that doesn't go away, that happens every day, no matter what you're doing. You can be lying comfortably in your bed and it's still there. People understand fatigue to some extent, although they can't really picture that not going away when you get some rest and sleep either. The hardest thing for people to understand, in my experience, has been the cognitive problems that you have with CFS. That there are things that you could do as a very young child that you can no longer do. My sister and I have a joke that you can't have a list of 2 things, but 2 things is all I can remember at the same time. I can't get a list of 3, the third one always goes on me. People do not often see this because I've become very practiced in trying to manage the way my brain works. I've had this for such a long time that I've had to. And therefore, when people just talk to me and see me, they don't really understand how much work I'm going through just to try to make my brain work at all. It's like working with very bad machinery. Instead of having a brain that works nicely and smoothly like a well-oiled machine, you have an old clunker, and you have to keep tinkering with it and trying different tricks and different ways to make it work. And what people see on the outside is not what's going on the inside. I feel like I'm dancing as fast as I can just to keep up on the inside, but that's not what comes out on the outside. It's a hard thing to explain, and people become very embarrassed when they try to explain their cognitive problems. And you can tell they hold them back. Sometimes you almost have to talk to people for a while before they'll tell you what they've gone through with their cognitive problems. But people who have had very well-functioning brains their whole lives all of a sudden can't remember basics. I could never remember the names of basic items. I would get lost going familiar places. Reading has been important to me all my life. It's been just a cornerstone of my life. I was known as a little girl who walked down the street reading books all the time as a child. And this illness took that away from me for a very long period of time. I could not read a book at all. I couldn't read a magazine article. I couldn't read a comic strip because I couldn't make panel 3 make sense connected to panel 1. I couldn't get that far into it. And that was a tremendous loss. It really felt like being madly in love with someone and having them disappear on you. It felt like you were being abandoned. I felt totally abandoned by my brain and robbed of something that had always been precious to me. And it's very hard to remember that you're still the same person. So much of the way that you function is different. The way that you look is different sometimes. It is for me, certainly. And for many people, most of us can recognize each other by our eyes to start with. You look different. You function differently. You lose so much function. All the things that you defined yourself by are gone. So you have to go all the way back down to basics and say, who am I? All the way down at the bottom. And that's the only way you can find yourself again. I know I'm the same person, but it took a lot of work to get there. You don't feel like the same person for so long. You feel diminished. You feel humiliated. It's very humiliating to have to ask your children the name of a simple object. I always figured I taught them, they can tell me. It's embarrassing to explain to people that you can't rely on your brain. That you'd love to be able to say that what you do this week is what you'll be able to do next week. But there's no way you can say that. I can't say that what I can do today, I can do tomorrow. Anytime I do something, I explain to people that my brain can stop working to do that particular thing at any given time. And just to be prepared for that. I hope that it doesn't, but it could. And it has in the past, and I know it will in the future, until a cure is found for this terrible illness, until it's better understood and a cure is found. But it's hard to make people understand that. I always thought I could count on my brain. You don't think you can lose something like that, your ability to think. Going into libraries was always an exciting experience for me. I would go in and I would feel like this was something I owned. I could pick up any book in a library. And I knew that if I were patient, I could read the material inside and understand it and have whole new vistas opened up for me. Now, if I look in a library, it doesn't feel the same. I just have to trust that one book at a time, so far, at the present time, I'm able to read. That might not be true next month. It certainly wasn't true 10 years ago. But if you take it a little at a time and say, well, today I can read this book at this time and try to live with whatever comes next,